back to another episode of Fire Starters. I'm so excited to have you here with today's guest, Carrie Ann Barrette. I got it right. I'm I'm going to let her introduce herself because Fire Starters, this woman is many, many things. And as we were chatting back and forth, she began to just describe herself. And I thought, that's a lot. This woman is a lot. And it's so beautiful. I mean, I'm taking notes here and I'm like, yes, I need to introduce myself as that. So go ahead, Carrie Ann, let us know all about you.
I don't know if it'll be all about me, but I'll give you the short little intro. So I'm Carrie Ann Barrette. I'm a wife, mom, a counselor, and author. I love to share about God's glory and your identity in Christ, what that really means. I have 3 babies, and I'm not working right now because I'm taking care of them. But, I'm writing and doing videos. I have a channel on YouTube about their stories for God's glory, helping people share their story of how life was before, during, and after meeting Jesus. So it's been an exciting ride doing all these fun.
Okay, so how old are your babies right now in this season?
Oh gosh, they are 8, 10, and 12. Almost 13.
8.
She would remind me she is almost 13.
I have one of those. Our kids are similar ages. So your season is busy. It is full. Yeah. It is emotional, I'm going to say, and active.
That's for sure.
Yes. Well,
yeah, I'm a homeschooling mom. It's really active.
Okay, homeschooling.
Yeah, I didn't add that in there, but yeah, homeschooling. We do that.
Okay, so see, I said she has her hands in many, many, many things. So one of the biggest desires in my heart, you talked about having people share their story before, during, and after meeting Christ. One of the greatest desires I have in my heart is really to speak to the person that I used to be 13 years ago, and still kind of am day to day when imposter syndrome gets in or spiritual warfare comes along as it does. And that's to speak life and truth into her and to remind her that God does have good plans for her, that he made her on purpose. And those dreams and those desires that are in her heart are there for his glory and the goodness of others. So I want you to take us back to a time where you heard God calling you out of the boat and to step onto the waters. Take us back to that.
Well, I was thinking about doing a recent one. There's kind of 2 that are coming to mind. I know I'll say back, I just thought of a different one. So back many years ago, I won't tell you how many, but when I was coming back to the Lord and really walking in the church and learning about the Bible, I felt led to consider going back to school. And for me, it was seminary. I wanted to minister to women. So I felt like maybe I should go to school, but I don't know. I'm not in that. I was in a church that women weren't pastors. So at the time I was like, I don't know, I can't be really a pastor. So why would I go to seminary? Like, what would I be doing? And I was like, well, maybe I'll go minister to women. And God didn't let me get out of the boat. He kicked me out of the boat. So I was working in sales. I had a lovely 6-figure income. I was building my kingdom. I thought, Yahoo, here we go. This is awesome. And I started to have some health problems. And so it wasn't a big, huge issue, but it was enough for me to be very uncomfortable for a long season of time. And I started to not have the best attitude. That's just what happens. I made all my numbers. My office was closing the company was closing its local office. So I was a little stressed out that I was probably going to lose my job. A little stressed. Everybody in the office was stressed. So even though I made my numbers, they sent me to Hawaii. It was a wonderful experience. I came back and they were like, your attitude's not so great, so we're going to let you go. And I was like,
Oof.
Okay, well, I haven't been feeling so well. And they're like, well, we didn't know. So that's it. So whatever. I get home. I'm like, Lord, what am I going to do? And yes, the health issue got taken care of. I'm fine. But it was the thing that got me out of the boat. Within 24 hours, I knew that the Lord was like, it's now, you're going. And so I ended up going to school and thankfully, having been in a good job, I was able to kind of get through school monetarily. That was good. But sometimes he just has taken me out of the boat. He's like, oh no, now it's time. I was going to share, if it's okay, share another quick story
Yes.
about a recent kick out of the boat. So we have been in a church for 10 years. This is the church my babies all grew up in. This is the church I grew up in. We have had loved the church. We were searching for a charismatic, spirit-filled church. We found it. We stayed there for 10 years, and it was a great experience. And then we started to feel like the Lord was kind of giving us hints that we weren't going to be there forever. And we weren't really wanting to listen to that. But we kept hearing it. We would have conversation, my husband and I would have conversations. And I said, well, what would be the sign if we weren't supposed to go anymore? And he said, if I couldn't go, because he was the worship leader. And he said, if I couldn't go, if the schedule changed and we couldn't go to church, then I guess that would be it. And wouldn't you know, they changed it. So their service was on Saturday night. He worked Saturday night, so we couldn't go. And it was crazy because within that whole time of learning that, the Lord gave us a very clear word, and it was very unsettling. This is why I want to bring this point up. He said to us through a conference for the church, actually, to remember Lot's wife. And I didn't want to remember Lot's wife because that means I have to go and not look back. I have to go and not connect, not say, not remember, not visit, not call, not attend anymore. It's like clean slate, cut cord, you're out, no looking back. And that has been the hardest thing in a very long time, to leave a church that, we were elders, we were part of, we had loved all the people we had, they were family. I used to call the pastor dad, and now God's like, you're out. So sometimes God does wild things, and you have to just trust that God knows what he's doing and he knows why he's doing it. So it was a struggle of a journey in the last few months. We found a new place to land for now, but just trusting him in the wild when he calls to do crazy, this doesn't make sense kind of thing. And so that's the other one I thought I would share.
I'm so glad that you shared both of those. And as I was listening, I was thinking, wow, kicked out of the boat. Like, have I had that experience? Have I had it? And I have to say, I have in one regard. When I was single, have you heard of Bible Study Fellowship, BSF?
No, not the organization, but just, Organization of Bible Studies.
Yeah. It's an organization that if you choose to be a leader, I was in a singles group, and they put you with women only. They asked me to lead, and they said, but if you do lead, we ask that you refrain from drinking alcohol socially because you never know who might be struggling. And I was like, no problem. Hardly drank alcohol ever. And I heard specifically the Lord tell me, you will quit drinking completely. You will no longer drink alcohol. And that was I was like, okay. It wasn't an audible voice, but it was his voice. You know what I mean? And it was not of me. And I thought, this is so strange. Like, I am not an alcoholic. Why would you call? This is very strange. A year later, I met my husband, who was currently working on his 3rd year of sobriety. He was an alcoholic. And I thought, there it is. How interesting. There it is that I didn't know why then, but I would need to be a woman who refrained from alcohol because of who you had set aside. And so it didn't make sense at the time. It was wildly uncomfortable to be in my 20s, to be single, and to be in those situations. And I had pushback from friends who were like, why? So that helped me remember that. So thank you for that, because I think I would have said, oh no, I've never been asked or pushed out of the boat, but I have, and it's out of nowhere and you don't understand why, and it's uncomfortable. What were the challenges with that? You got kicked out of the boat in both situations. I'm thinking specifically with church, and you can't look back. So, and here's your whole family unplugged. What were the challenges in your obedience in that?
Well, my whole church family. The whole network we had created. Like I said, we were elders. My husband was a worship leader. Like, we had created a whole world around this certain church. And I think it's wonderful when we do that. But looking back, I'm like, oh, wow. It's kind of putting all your eggs in the same basket, And so that when the basket moves, what do you do with your eggs? you know? And so, yeah, it was just really hard. I was thankful that I had, there's still a few people that we connect with, but it was a surprising change that we haven't connected with most that are in that boat. And then we are in a different kind of church that's very solid in the word, but I don't know yet if they're as charismatic as we had been. So that's an interesting thing that the Lord has put us in this church that's very different, or at least seeming different. They're friendly as and wonderful. I love them. But one blessing has been that my daughter has gone and started reading scripture on her own. So I don't know. I don't know if like I would change churches just for that, I guess, in a way, because she is just chewing on scripture and memorizing it even on her own. It had nothing to do with it. So, sometimes you don't know why you're doing the change you're doing. You don't know what the reason is. You don't know what's on the other side of the change. Like you didn't know with the not drinking, right? You didn't know that there was a husband on the other side that needed you to be a
Yeah.
solid, sober person. But sometimes we don't know what's on the other side that's so important. So we don't know.
Do you feel like there was a better version of you on the other side of that yes that you gave the Lord in both instances with work and with church?
There's a tested version of me on the other side. Like God has tested me in these things. When he calls us out of either into a boat or out of a boat, depending on the situation, the call is whether or not you're going to be obedient in the dark. Often we don't have a clue what's on the other side, whether we're getting in the boat and there could be a storm, or we're getting out of the boat and we don't see the friendly faces outside. We don't see the plan.
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't ask us to envision the plan as much as he does, but he doesn't as much as he asks us to trust his plan. And so it's been a learning journey to like, how much do I trust him? Do I trust him enough to, when I was younger, do I trust him enough to give up anything and go to school for an unknown? And I had already had a degree, so it wasn't like I needed another one necessarily. And then recently, do I trust him to leave everything and, start again with a church family and network and friends and so forth. And he's blessed us. We've met some wonderful people, like I said, and we've got some solid word, and the pastor's been wonderful. But the trusting has been something that it was like the Lord was testing us in. Like, do you trust me to take you out of something so familiar and so friendly and so comfortable for some unknown? And God does certainly absolutely do that with us to see. And, just like with the promised land, coming out of Egypt, people were like, well, I miss Egypt, and I'm not saying the church was Egypt, but even with them, they got free of so much. And then they still were like, well, I kind of miss Egypt. I kind of miss the food, and so we're so fickle as humans. We so miss comfort, even if it's not that comfortable.
That is so true. It is comfort. There's some quote I read somewhere. Comfort is the enemy of, I don't remember what, but I'm going to say a lot. Comfort's the enemy of growth. Comfort can be the enemy of faith and obedience. But it calls to us and our willfulness, and we begin to make excuses and say, oh, well, did he really mean that? Was that right? I mean, I can tell you I was in some hard situations where I felt so compelled to drink because of the pressure around me. And that's little compared to leaving a church or a job, going back to school. But even in that situation, I was like, did I really hear him right? And I'm so thankful for the experience that he gave me, that it was like, no, you know what you heard, you know what he called you to, that you can't justify this. But going back to school, well, let me say this. You have a book. I can see it behind you. That is not ordinary. We don't have authors, and that had to be a battle and a storm that you went through. And going back to school. So after you went back to school, kind of take us through that journey. You go back to school, you have different calling, you're working in a different way. Walk us to that journey all the way to where you are now.
Okay. So I went to school, and out on my own. You go from, like, all you who know that you go to work every day and you have your own life and you have your own place and you have your own stuff. And then I went back to school and lived on campus in a little tiny room with roommates. It's a very strange transaction. And then I did my studies. It was an amazing experience because as I kind of shared it, or maybe I didn't, but I came from a church where it wasn't very charismatic. The Holy Spirit wasn't really focused on. And at seminary, Gordon Conwell, you wouldn't figure, I happened to, when I switched from pastoral focus, because Greek and I didn't get along. I felt like that was a little bit too grammar focused for me. And anyway, I switched my major to counseling to still minister to women. But when I did that, I sat with a professor who was very, very charismatic. Talked about Nikki Cruz and casting out demons and raising the dead. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I knew people that were talking in tongues and doing all this stuff. And I was just like, I need to understand this, because this doesn't, I mean, I know it's in the Bible, but I didn't think y'all do this anymore, you know? And so I started to search it out. And then I realized, well, gosh, if it's true for them and it's true for me, like, God didn't say you're going to start healing the sick and raising the dead, but then you're going to stop when I go to heaven. No, he didn't say that.
Right.
This is a perpetual thing that we're going to be doing. And so, all right, so you come home from school, graduate, living with my parents, my mom and stepfather, because, you know, when you graduate from a master's degree, you might not have a ton of money and a new job. And so we lived there in a very interesting situation. You know, we're talking about change. It was change. Again, it was a challenge. Are you willing to come back home and live with these people that, you know, it's a little uncomfortable? And so did that. But I was blessed to, you know, meet a wonderful group of people and my husband, and it was really good to do that. Started counseling, so forth. And in this transaction, found a new church. My husband was much more charismatic, Vineyard. And so it was good that I met that professor rather, at school, because I needed to in order to be with my husband. We had met before, but he knew that I wasn't at the time. And he was like, yeah, she's not, I don't know how we're going to do this, God. So coming back out of college, if I'm making any sense, coming out of seminary, I had much more of that flavor of faith. And so he and I started dating, got married. I was counseling, had babies, you know, that's kind of the journey. But we looked for a new church at one point, found the one we have, and in the journey, one day on the way to the new church, the Lord said to me, put your crown on. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And it took me a while to figure out exactly what he means. But it's what the book is about. It's about how we walk as children of God in all that it means as his in authority, in power, in strength, and as being his beloved child. And so that is what the Lord led me to write about. And then I've been, you know, like I said, just helping people share their stories, because I love the stories about people's lives. And it seems that I have this very strange gift. My husband says it's strange. People tell me their stories. I can be anywhere doing anything, and my husband will be there, and nobody tells him anything, he says. And they tell me everything that's ever happened to them since the beginning, usually with the darkest parts first. And he's like, what happened? Why is that? Which is great that I was a counselor, right? Because people tell me their stories. But now I get to help people share their stories about God and how God has changed their life.
I love that. I also love hearing people's stories, hence the Firestarters podcast. It is my favorite thing to do. I'm sure you lose track of time, like you just find yourself leaning in and asking more questions, because you find God in people's stories. I mean, you meet him there in the ways that he's met them. And it's just, to me, I like to say, you know, people wonder if miracles still happen. They do.
Absolutely.
I'll at least speak in America, we tend to go step in and attempt to save ourselves instead of allowing him to work in our life and get to experience the miracle. I find. And so when you meet women like you who are willing to go, well, wait, what do you mean by that? One, to listen, put on your crown, and to hear him, and then to say, tell me more about that, and then step towards it as he guides you, well, then look what happens. You have a book right there,
Yeah, it was me writing. There were times where I was like, "Oh Lord, I haven't read the Bible today, and I haven't done this, and I haven't done this." And he would say, "Go, sit down, and write." And so I would sit and write, and he would talk to me about what he wanted to say and help me to find the scripture and back up everything that he was telling me. And so it was good.
I love that God guided you on that writing journey. Because I know that there are women right now listening who have a book in their heart. God's called them and said, you're going to write this. And they're going, but I'm not an author. I didn't even write in high school. I don't even like to read. How am I supposed to do this? And all of that is for him to work out. And he'll guide you through it. Just as you said, he'll guide you through it. How do you balance?
I'd love to
Say
talk
that
to
again.
those ladies. I'd love to talk to those ladies for just a second, if you don't mind. So, ladies,
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, if you have a book that you're thinking that the Lord has put on your heart, you can go slow. You don't have to take it all in one night, all in one year. You can do bits and bites of it. You can, write an outline and see how it goes. Or, I have to say, I've been telling people for a while, and I kind of wish I had made the technology for this, but you can do a talk to text. You can sit in your car and text yourself the book and the outline and then go home and fix it. I did the book writing from 9 o'clock at night to midnight or 12:30 or whatever, a couple nights a week, because that's what I had. My kids were here. I'm a mom. I had to take care of the kids. And so I would write at night. And so you can find time here and there, especially like I'm saying, if you're going to just audio it on your phone and send it to yourself, you can do it. You can find the time. God will make it happen.
That is really good. I love that. I love the voice to text idea. That is brilliant, because how many times are you driving in the car or you're in the shower even? You could stop the shower. But God gives you something in your life. I need to remember that. And how quickly you could do that. Just open your notes or whatever app you have on your phone and just say it. And then you can go back to it. And like you said, fix it later.
Yeah.
That is so good. That just opens up permission to just get started.
Right. And this is my second time releasing this book. The first time it had a lot of issues and errors in it. I didn't like the cover. And so I just did it again, fixed it up, re-release it. You don't expect perfection out of yourself, because only Jesus is, that's it.
That very true. Yeah. He doesn't call us to be perfect. I even think with this podcast, I felt called to do this 2 years ago. And I didn't obey, Carrie Ann. I didn't. I had that. Well, other people are doing that. I don't have the time. Somebody could do it better. And I was talking to a mentor. We kind of have a reciprocal mentorship going. And I was so confused on where God was calling me. I was like, I'm having a hard time hearing him. I just don't. Maybe I'm just in a desert. Maybe I need to wait. I just don't have clarity. And she said, well, 2 years ago, you had extreme clarity on this podcast. I mean, you knew the purpose, you had the vision, you already had women lined up. I find that God doesn't give you the next step until you're faithful with the first. And I know, right? When she said that, I mean, you could have just, I think I like went back a little bit, like it hit me, but I was too wrapped up in, I guess, a result or what success would be, right? You make a podcast so that there would be listeners. And when she said that, it just hit me. That's not my side of the street. That's God's work. He's called me to host it, to create the space and give the women a voice. And that's all you're responsible for, Hillary. And it was like, oh, well, I can do that. I don't have to be successful.
Just scatter the seeds. It's not your job to feed them. Just scatter the seeds, and whoever needs the food will eat it.
That's a very good way to say that. I like that.
Yeah, so, you're not responsible. Sorry, you're not responsible for perfection either. We're not Oprah. I'm never going to be Oprah, and that's okay. I'm Carrie. That's it.
Yes, that's good. And no, perfection is not going to happen. So, um, I don't know why our brains always want to go back to that though. It's like a default setting to worry about that, to concern ourselves with that, which is why it's so important to be in his word and remember his promises so that we can remind ourselves to continually let that go, you know?
I know that like perfection gets in the way. I don't know if you know John Acuff. I'll put him out there. Like John Acuff's got a few books. One is called Start, I think. And it's just about how we get in our own way. Be like, oh, well, mine's not going to be as good as Joe's. Look at Amy. She's got, 2 million viewers. I'm not going to have any viewers. I've never written a book or I've never done this thing. And so, and God's like, I'm not asking you to build. He says to me all the time, Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, he's like, I'm not asking you to build Rome. I'm just asking you to do this step today, and then tomorrow we'll worry about the next step.
That is so freeing. And it really is that simple. Just do this step. Can you just do this step and let the rest go? That is so freeing. And that allows you to do what you've done. Go back and get another degree, change churches, write a book, be a mother during all of it, and a wife, and I'm sure a friend, and a million other hats that you wear. If you could go back to your former self at the beginning of this journey, or even speak to a woman who has heard God say, put on your crown, or whatever that message is, and she's frozen in fear, what would you say to her?
Yeah, I would say listen. Mm-hmm. The number one thing I would say would be to listen. Set yourself aside to listen to the Lord. Write down whatever you think he is saying, even if it looks completely ridiculous, and see what net he is casting before you. And then watch and see what he puts before you as opportunities or times or nudges, and make notes, take notes. I was a counselor, so I say journal. I have 2 journals that I sell. Journal, because you want to watch for God. He's going to lay out breadcrumbs. You're going to need to pick them up. They're not going to look like a whole cookie. They're going to look like pieces and parts that you won't know what to do with. But eventually, he will show you what those pieces and parts are for, and then you will see more and more of the cookie or the puzzle coming together. And it's going to be a journey. I mean, I've gotten prophetic words. I've given prophetic words. Sometimes the prophetic words are, oh, you're going to be an author. I've had people say, oh, you're going to be a lot of books. These are their prophetic words. I know that doesn't mean today. I am not, if I'm going to write more books, it's not going to be today. I might someday, if that's what God's plan is, but it's not today. Okay, what am I supposed to do today? Today, I'm supposed to be obedient. Today, I'm supposed to glorify and honor the Father. Today, I am supposed to be the bride of Christ. Today, I'm supposed to love my husband, feed my children, take care of them, make sure they're fed. There's some basics that we need to do. And then, as we walk with God, as we listen to God, he'll show us how to do the next step. He'll give us a picture. He'll give us a vision. He'll give us the people that connect with us to get to that next point. So when I came to the Lord, or came back to the Lord, it's a longer story, but within the week, my coworker said, hey, Carrie, do you want to go to church? He puts people in our life that we need for the next leg of the journey. And so if you're on a journey and you don't know where to go, maybe it's because you haven't met the person yet. Maybe it's because he hasn't shown you the next step. I'm at a totally different church than I thought I would be at, So life is going to be different, and we're going to do different things. I have a different social circle of people doing and saying and walking with the Lord in different things. So yeah, the breadcrumbs, just know that he might give you a bigger picture than you're ready for today, but you're not going to paint that whole picture today.
Yes, that's good. That is very good. You're filled with gold, and I can tell there's even more. There's more to access. So where can people find you, Carrie? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, my number one is on Facebook. So Carrie Ann Barrette at Facebook. You can also, if you want to watch videos and so forth, you can go to YouTube. You can find me there. For the book, you can go to Amazon and put Your Crown on Book, and you will find mine and Queen Latifah's. You know the
I
difference. You
love
know
it.
which one to get. So
You'll know
that is
immediately.
where to.
I love that. And I'll put all that in the show notes for everybody, so they can just click easily and find you. So if you're listening right now and you want to connect with Carrie, just go down in the show notes as you're listening and click her link and connect with her. I would highly recommend going to Amazon and getting the book. It is so important to remember whose you are, and that it is Christ in us and his work in us, and not in our own strength, so that we can be brave, step out in faith and obey and follow the call that he's put on our heart. Carrie, thank you so much for this. You served us very well today, and I can't wait to go to YouTube and listen to those stories. That's the first place I'm going. I've already been to Amazon, so I guess I should say it's the second place I'm going. Uh,
Oh,
but
have fun.
thank you,
And I have amazing people.
thank you for this today, friend. Thank you.
You bless you.